Good morning, good morning, good morning, or evening, good day, hello and welcome. If you're catching us on the replay, this is Mobility Magic with Fascial Stretch Simon Page from the Good Life Fitness Personal Training Team. If you're catching us live, welcome. Good morning, and welcome to Mobility Magic. So today we're going to work on a little bit of shoulder, upper back, mobilizing the neck a little bit too, and a few requests for that area. Just going to show you some kind of best of bits and pieces that I think work really well just to tie those things together. So again, a little bit of shoulder, a little bit of upper back, and a little bit of neck. Going to need a wall, going to need a little bit of floor space. It's a grey day here. I have a conveniently grey outfit just to stand out against the lighting, so bear that in mind. And again, you'll need foam roller, lacrosse ball, normal things that you would need for a Mobility Magic session. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off the comments so we can get straight into it, because I know a number of people tune in and are like, oh, you got to stop talking, let's get on with it. So let's turn off the comments. So again, today we're going to do a little bit of shoulder, upper back, and some neck stuff. So the first thing we do is a little bit of a feedback loop. So grab yourself a space on a wall. We want to check in and see what's happening with our shoulders. So ideally, about a foot from the wall, squat down just a little bit so you have no compensation for your low back, and you want to make sure your back doesn't come away. Now, we're looking to see what our internal, external range of motion is with our shoulders. That's a couple of reasons we want to do that. We also want to see if we compensate from our T-spine. So if you have a mirror, that can also work, but essentially we're looking to get about 90 degree with the shoulder, a good angle that you can get into an overhead press position without compensation through the low back. No arching, okay? So that's just a good feedback loop for you. Second thing is, how does your neck feel? Want to just do a few rotations, want to turn it from side to side, and you want to see if, as we turn, we can get our nose to point in line with our shoulder. If we're compensating and start to turn our head slightly, that's something to bear in mind too. Same thing the other way. And the last thing that we're going to check in for today for our feedback loop, so we know what to check in for later, is how tight, how strong you feel in those overhead positions. It's a good thing to have range, but we've got to make sure we're strong in those overhead positions too. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to do is start from the floor. So we're actually going to open up that T-spine and chest a little bit. So if you've done this one before, you'll remember that a yoga block can help, but if you don't have one, it's fine. And the reason I want to start there is sometimes it's a good idea to get that chest and back open. So if you have a long foam roller, that's slightly better. But if you don't, grab something you can rest your head on, like a pillow, and I'll set up further back so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And we're going to try and find a spot where we can rest over the top of our foam roller and just let our arms hang down. Now the reason I like a slightly longer foam roller for this one is because we can have a little bit of support on that low back, but again, you can just build like a surface up with some pillows or something. And with this, it's a little bit more of a passive stretch because we're just letting our shoulders open up. So if you've done yoga before, you'll have done something similar. This one is like more of a passive stretch. You can include some breathing in this one. And it's just a nice deep breath in and out. And what I want you to do is, on this one, I want you to try and imagine that you're getting your scapulars to sink together, so your shoulder blades are just kind of pinching at the back, just opening up. And this one again is a good passive stretch, because a lot of what we do is quite active, and we're just trying to get these shoulders, this chest to kind of tease open and back. So you can build this up on a surface if you need to, but again, passive stretch, a few nice deep breaths in, just let those shoulders fall away, nice deep breath in, breathe out. And again, you can just adjust this block if you need to, but I personally like to just support the head, because if you're in this position with a little bit of tension running through your neck, it becomes really tense and actually undoes the work that you've just done. So a yoga block can really help in this position. You should put it down behind our head just to support, because again, we are going to get there later, but for now we want it in a neutral position, and we want to just let this chest kind of open up. So we just, again, nice deep breaths in, into the belly, and then kind of top the chest up last. So if I was to divide it up, I'd say probably like 50% into your diaphragm, belly breath, and then about 50% to the chest, just to get a little bit of expansion. Breathing in through the nose. And breathe out. Okay, awesome. So that's a little bit of a passive one just to start you off, just to get you into a relaxed position. That works well both as a kind of a passive warm down or stretch session, stretch, or as kind of a little bit of a get your mind in the zone warm up stretch. So next one, a little bit of a T-spine opener. Make sure you're far enough away from the wall. I wasn't then, but we're just going to start at the top of our shoulders, just around our shoulder blades. A little bit of light pressure, about 6% out of 10. Keep your chin tucked slightly on this one, and we're just bringing our arms back. And as we bring our arms back, we're just going to bring our head back slightly too. Again, don't need to have too much pressure on this one. We're just lifting our hips a little bit as well to add a little bit of pressure. We're just trying to get this T-spine, this top section of our back, to open up, because that can actually, as a component of assisting with shoulder flexion, it's an area that we can compensate and we can improve. It'll actually improve that shoulder range of motion. So as I bring myself back, I'm trying not to compensate through my low back. What I'm actually doing is I'm using each segment, I'm kind of teasing open each segment as I go. So again, set yourself up so that you're just underneath your shoulder blades. We can bridge our hips a little bit. Appreciate you can't see them because it's slightly off camera, but it's the best position to have. And we're going to lift up to add a little bit of pressure if we need to. We can hinge or seesaw a little bit this way just to get our T-spine to open. And as soon as you feel a little bit more range, just move down slightly until you hit just about where your rib cage stops. That's where you want to finish, because that's where your lumbar spine's probably around about going to start, and we don't want to make that more mobile. We just want to make the T-spine more mobile. So reaching back again, take a nice deep breath in, reach back, bring your head back just a little bit. Again, same thing. If it feels more stable, you can even bring your arms over your chest, and you can even just bring your hands behind your chest if that feels better for you. Just keep that chin tucked, okay? So with this one, again, we're trying to open up each segment. So it's a lean back on the exhale, breathe in. Breathing back, open that chest up, feel a little bit of stretch. Lean back. Excellent. So that's just to open up the T-spine. You can do this on the wall, however, and this works probably not as well, but it can be a little bit more accessible to some people that have issues getting up and down off the floor. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a lacrosse ball release on the shoulders. So again, this is one that we like to do quite often because we find it's very effective. We are going to place the lacrosse ball just around the top of the shoulder blade, just about where the levator scap attaches to the neck. So this one is a good catch-all for the neck. So grab your tennis ball / lacrosse ball, or something that you know is going to really work with this. And I'll show you how to do this on the wall in a minute. So we're going to place the ball on the floor. We're going to position ourselves so we have enough range away from the wall. And again, we're driving the shoulder blade down a little bit. We're going to use this as a rudder to guide the pressure, and I'm going to use my hips to guide the amount of pressure that I need into the stretch. Just let me bring this back a little bit so you can see. So again, place the ball wherever is best for you. We're going to bring this arm back, using it as a rudder. Using it as a rudder, we're going to guide the stretch. So what I mean is, I want to kind of visualize that I'm sheathing a sword, and as I come into this stretch to this top corner, I'm going to turn my blade up to the top corner, and I'm going to let my thumb guide back. And as I get to the top, breathing in, adding a little bit of pressure downwards. You should feel a little bit of tension there. I am bringing it down. I'm turning my thumb down to the bottom corner. I'm sheathing that sword, and then I'm bringing it back up again. So if you need to add any more pressure, you can lift your hips. For most people, the amount of tension of your shoulder just being above the ball and weighing it down into the floor should be enough. So it's top corner, we'll bring it down. As we bring it down, we're just keeping that pressure into the lacrosse ball. If you don't quite feel anything, just find a new position. We're going to do a couple on this side, okay? This tends to be an area where a lot of my personal clients get some tension. If you're on your phone too much, if you are doing a lot of desk work, if you have a forward head posture, this can be an area that builds up a lot of tension, okay? So you can also do an internal, external rotation from this side. So whichever works best for you, this is what I want you to do. So whichever you get the most effect from. So you have two options. You can let your arm hang down and internally and then externally rotate the shoulder. So external will be opening the shoulder up this way, internal will be opening up this way. Try and keep about a 90 angle. Or the second option, or the first option I should say, would be just sheathing that sword down to the bottom corner. You can even do it straight down, pulling down to that bottom pocket, keeping that stretched down to the bottom pocket as I bring that arm all the way back and I apply a little bit of downward pressure. So let's just find another position. With this one in particular, it's about frequency rather than intensity. If you do this one really intensely, what I tend to find is people get bruised, they get unhappy, and this is less effective because you actually get a little bit tighter. So working this out again, we find another spot, we're stretching down to the bottom corner or we're opening up our shoulder. We'll bring it up to the top left-hand corner because I'm doing my left-hand side this time. And I'm going to stretch as far as I can this top corner before I bring it down to the bottom. So again, make sure you're breathing nice and deep as you do it. Obviously, as I guide you through these, a little bit harder to do myself, but we are going to persevere. So I'm going to switch around. Again, lacrosse ball this time on my right shoulder. It's a little bit more difficult for me to flip around for you to see it, so I'm just going to continue on this side and going to transfer the ball across the other side. It'll be easier once I stand up on the wall, you'll be able to see it, but let's persevere. We're going to put the lacrosse ball on our shoulder. For those that are just joining us and wondering what we're doing, we are releasing the shoulder a little bit around the levator scap. We're doing a little bit of a release around the shoulder. We are just finding that trigger point on our shoulder, and again, not too hard, about 6 or 7 out of 10. We are using our hips to add any pressure by bridging a little bit. We can even add a little bit of pressure just by lifting or lowering our shoulder into the lacrosse ball. So lacrosse ball underneath, or at the top of the shoulder, I should say, top of the shoulder blade, we have some weight down into that levator scap. That's the muscle that connects the neck and the shoulder. And we're just going to float our thumb down to the bottom corner, so my right thumb to my left corner, and then bring it up and across to the top right hand corner. I'm stretching as far as I can, and then I'm keeping that pressure into the lacrosse ball, so equal pressure is important to kind of dissipate those tight knots, and then bring it up to the right hand corner. Now, if you get to the right, top right here, and you feel a little bit of a stretch, I myself had a little bit of stretch through that front of my forearm, that means that I need to just come up a little bit and just breathe in that position. So if you feel a stretch, just hang out there, take a nice deep breath, and as you breathe out, what should naturally happen is your chest rib cage should open up a little bit, that shoulder should relax, and you should be able to find a little bit new range in that top corner. So again, first option is going to be stretching to the bottom corner and then bringing that sword up to the top right. Second one could be internal or external rotation. A little bit more limited on this side, so I'm going to do a little bit of internal, external rotation as well. And you can do this as much as you need to, but I would say it's better if you do this more frequently during the day than one intense session, because this will actually sometimes bruise if this is not something you're used to doing. Okay, so again, if you're tuning in, you're lying, if you're watching a guy lie on the floor, we are doing some lacrosse ball release on the shoulder and levator scap. So find a new position, because we're going to do a couple today. we're reaching to this top corner, and then we're going to stretch down to the bottom corner. If you need any more pressure, again, you can lift your shoulders up to get a little bit more downward pressure into that spot. Breathe through it, about a 6 or a 7 in terms of awareness, kind of discomfort level, I would say, pressure level, let's say. And if you have any tension, headaches, anything you kind of feeling it move into your forehead, then this could also be a good one for you. Okay, a little bit internal, external, a little bit of top corner. Awesome. So we're going to take this onto the wall now, just to show you an alternative position for this particular stretch. You can do it on a wall, but you could be more likely to lose control and drop the lacrosse ball or tennis ball. So another way of doing this, and another way of adding tension and a little bit more of a stretch, is to put this ball against the wall. So find that same position you were in. We're going to do the same thing when we bring our hand up to the top corner, but we can also do this with the assistance of a stretch as well. So hand on the back of the head, pin that position down. You may even need to squat just a little bit, or even start a little bit lower. We're going to move this arm away from the midline, and we're going to pull this head up first, so traction up, and then down towards the armpit for a little bit more of a targeted stretch as we pressure back into the wall. We're going to release a little bit. You can even let the ball slide down the wall, apply a little bit more pressure this way by squatting down slightly and pushing back into the wall. And then we stretch down to the floor this time. We give our armpit a big sniff. That's just a cue, you don't have to do it. And then we are tractioning up and over towards that side, getting a little bit of stretch in the neck as well, and a little bit of release. Okay, so let's do the other side. Try to lose control of your ball. We are going to put this on the right hand side this time. Apologies if you can't quite see it. I don't have two walls to bounce around the camera on. So ball is against the wall on my right hand side. I'm finding a position where I can apply enough pressure into the wall. It takes a little bit of practice. We're pulling this arm down to the wall, or you can do it in free motion, whichever works for you. Sometimes people like to cross over a little bit, and that gets a nice kind of stretch through that trigger point that you might have. So find a point that's going to work for you. We're then going to pull down to the floor, traction up and over as we get a little bit of a neck stretch as well. Nice deep breath in, find that trigger point, give your armpit a big sniff on the way past, and then we're stretching down. So step away from the wall for a sec, give your shoulders a little bit of a roll, because we've done quite a lot of work on the floor. See if there's any improvement. So see if there's any improvement in your internal and then external range of motion. Hopefully there's a little bit of an improvement there. This can be really effective. If not, it's like a rinse and repeat thing. Do it more frequently, but less intense, okay? So let's just do that one more time. Let's just go through this one more time, just so that the directions are clear, okay? We're gonna drop lacrosse ball into position, so wherever that might be. I like to squat down a little bit, just so I can apply a little bit of backwards pressure. Find a different point this time, and then we're gonna do the same thing where we came across our body to that top corner, where we kind of guided the sword to sheath the sword, and then we kind of unsheathed it to the top corner. And we're also going to combine a little bit of a stretch. So it's like a rub your belly, pat your head type of thing. But we're going to come down to the bottom corner, and then we're stretching up. We're coming down, we're stretching up. We can internally, externally rotate as we stretch as well. And then you may even find, like I just did, the trigger point moved a little bit, and now I need to find a new position, okay? So again, traction down, that's internally, so that's coming in this way. Externally rotate, let's stretch up, I come across, and let's relax and move across to the other side. So just transition that to that trigger point on the right hand side now if you have one. You can even find another position on your shoulder blade, working all the way around the shoulder blade. It's just giving you an initial impression of what you could do. Anywhere around that shoulder blade tends to get a little bit sticky for a lot of people. So if that's the case, you have a couple of options. You can come up, down, externally, internally rotate the shoulder, or any combination of those where you kind of unsheath the sword. So I'm going to pull for a little bit of traction in the neck into position. We're going to externally rotate the shoulder. We're going to internally rotate the shoulder. We're going to do that a couple of times. Just see where that tension is as I traction my head towards that bottom corner. I'm then going to bring my thumb up to the ceiling, down to the bottom corner. I'm just kind of floating it up and around, getting a little bit of active movement. Sometimes getting rid of these trigger points early in a session is really going to benefit the range of motion you get in your shoulder. So I would say try and hit those early on, just try and get rid of them. Just see how your shoulders feel now. So again, just give them a little bit of a roll. Just a little bit of a roll just to kind of see what's going on. So next part of this is we want to do a little bit of activation of the shoulder now that we've got a good position. So two ways you can kind of do it. I like both. We can just press into the wall in various positions, or we can systematically do it with a little bit of a wall clock, which again works really well with the chest. So we'll start with a little bit of a chest stretch first in this position, and that's just going to be bringing your arm behind you. We can do this passively by just bringing our leg forward and then just kind of turning our body away from the wall, find a position which works. And at the same time, I wait to pull that shoulder blade down to the floor. So we're just pulling that shoulder blade down to the floor. That's opening the chest, or in effect, it's just kind of doing this, while we passively lean against the wall and we turn our body away. So we're just going to turn our head away. Now I want you to imagine that as you pull that shoulder blade down, we're taking a nice deep breath into that area. Awesome. I'm going to turn away from you now. Sorry to be rude. We're going to do the same thing the other way. And again, just make sure your feet are right before I forget to do it the wrong way. Pulling that shoulder blade down, find a position where you feel comfortable and that shoulder blade can stay locked down. As I turn my chest a little bit to get a passive stretch, I might even get a little bit of traction in the shoulder, which can also feel really good as my palm is pressed into that wall and I'm turning my body away from the hip and shoulder, and I turn my head as well. Okay, a little bit of passive stretch on the chest there just to kind of start us off. So with this wall clock, we're looking to get some pressure into the wall. It's about activating that shoulder in a couple of different positions, which is really going to help us to kind of lock in that new shoulder position which we worked on a second ago. So first thing we're going to do is stand facing directly on, the wall's running alongside me, my feet are shoulder width apart, let's say, and I'm far enough away from the wall that I can apply some direct pressure. Once I get overhead, I have a little bit of an overhang here, so you have to use your imagination, but I'm pressing into the wall as hard as I can, pressing either the side of my hand or my palm into the wall, or the back of my hand, whichever works for you. I'm going to use the side in this one, and I should be able to feel my shoulder activate a little bit as I pull that shoulder blade back and down. I'm then going to move up to about, let's say, 4 o'clock on the clock, if I'm going anti-clockwise, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm pushing in, I'm pushing in, I'm pushing in, and then I'm going to come up. And now, sorry, I'm about 2 o'clock. I should have said 3, 2, 1, but we're now about 1 o'clock on the clock face. We're pushing in, pushing in, pushing in, and then we're going to come up. And now this is where I have an overhang, so I'm just going to step away. If you have a full length wall, do the same thing, get into a position where your hand is nice and high and you'll stretch straight up. Just use your imagination for now. Pressing against that wall, pressing, 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 pressing against that wall. I'm now going to come around to about 11 o'clock and I'm pressing into that wall. And this is where you start to feel it a little bit on your chest, and you should feel a little bit of activation as I press in. I should feel a little bit more stability in that shoulder as I pull that shoulder blade down to the floor. And then I'm going to come around and I'm pushing, pushing, pushing into the wall, feel a little bit of a chest stretch. And now I'm coming down to about 9 o'clock, turning my body, pushing into the wall, pushing into the wall, pushing into the wall, pushing into the wall. I'm coming down to about kind of 8 o'clock area. I'm pushing, pushing, pushing into the wall, feel a little bit of a chest stretch, and my shoulder starts to retract across my back, my shoulder blade, pushing into the wall in this position. Now, if you get to this position, you can always turn your hand around if you feel stronger in that position, because at the end of the day we're trying to just get our shoulder pulled down, so retracted and then a little bit protraction and then a little bit of depression as well as we're pulling that shoulder down to the floor. And then we're getting round to about 6 o'clock and then we're back round again. So again, just imagine the clock face. All these points of activation are going to make your shoulder strong, and if you just remember your intention is to pull that shoulder blade down to the floor, keep it locked down as you get through these different positions, you should already feel a little bit stronger. And if you do a little bit of a range of motion check, bring it through your backstroke position, you should also feel your shoulder blade should sit a little bit more true to your back. So let's do this the other way around. I'm going to do the same shoulder so you can see. Let's do the other side. Okay, so again, we're building stability in that range that we just built. So this time though, we're going to start, I'll get the numbers on the clock right, okay? So let's start at 3 o'clock and let's push that right hand into the wall this time. We did our left last time. If you're following along and you've just tuned in, we're doing a little bit of stability work for the shoulder, because we did some release work around the shoulder blade, we did some release on the levator scap and the T-spine. So pushing into the wall, I'm trying to keep that shoulder blade depressed, so I'm pulling my shoulder blades down, and then once I've done that for about 3 to 5 seconds, let's say, I'm then going to move up to about, let's say, 2 o'clock. Obviously, if your jumps are bigger, not a problem. If they need to be smaller, completely fine. Let's move up to about 1 o'clock. Pushing in, pushing as hard as you can. Imagine you pulling that shoulder blade back and down, back and down. And again, use your imagination. I've got an overhang right here, so just imagine that I'm fully stretched to the ceiling. I'm all the way up here, and I'm pushing into 12 o'clock, okay? You want to maintain that same position. If it gets difficult around 12 o'clock, you can turn your hand around, but for the most part, you want to try and keep it facing forward. Once you get past that 12 o'clock, then turn your hand around if you need to. And we're into a little bit of a chest stretch. Again, trying to keep that shoulder blade pulled down to the floor. And now we're coming around, we're crawling our hand around, trying to keep that same hip and shoulder alignment facing forward. And once you've done about 3 to 5 seconds, just move on to the next hour hand of the clock as we come around, okay? So again, we're just trying to create some stability. What a lot of people do will rush through the mobility piece without adding stability back in. So you gain these new ranges, but you don't train the brain as to where they are. And then you'll start to lose them because you'll be like, okay, so I don't feel strong in this position the day after because I didn't re-educate the muscles, I didn't retrain the brain, I didn't teach myself where those new ranges of motion are. Okay, so now I'm pushing into the wall. I want to try and get myself as close as possible. Now, if you get to a point where you can't apply force into the wall, it doesn't feel comfortable, feel free to turn your hand around, and we're pushing into that wall. And now I'm down to about 6 o'clock, and now I'm working past, pushing my hand into the wall, keeping that shoulder blade depressed, and then working around to that 3 o'clock. So make sure you follow any mobility stuff up with a little bit of stability stuff. It really, really helps to keep that range of motion that we've built. So let me just turn the comments on, just coming to the end of the session. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mobility Magic. If you have any comments, any feedback, please don't post them on the video because they don't get read, but post them on the video that we put on the live channel afterwards, so the IGTV replay channel. You can check this out anytime. There's obviously previous episodes where we've done a little bit more work on the neck and shoulders. If there's any areas that you would like us to work on for the next session, feel free to drop myself a message at Fascial Stretch Simon, or you can leave a message, as I say, on the video that we'll post afterwards. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Today has been about shoulder, T-spine mobility, a little bit of neck work, a little bit of release, and a little bit of stability at the end, which really I like to tie everything together with. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again next week on Monday at 11:30. Eno has his kickboxing cardio this evening at 5:30. Check that out. Otherwise, I will catch you next week at 11:30 on Monday. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.